Hello!
Hello guys.
Hello. Welcome to a very special episode of VanTech Tuesday, in which we're talking shit.
Literally.
Yeah, quite literally. A lot of you asked lots of questions about what we all do as far as the toilets in the van, so we thought, well, why not have three totally different perspectives on what we do with toilets in the van. Rather than kind of like go through tons of questions, I'll let Dom go first and explain what they use for a toilet in their van.
Right, we've got a composting toilet, which technically doesn't compost because it doesn't have a long enough window of time.
Yeah.
But the theory is there. So the way that works is it separates your ones and twos. So you have effectively a plastic jar at the front and a box at the back. And when you sit down, if you're doing a combination affair, then as you go, the wee goes in the pot, the poo goes in the box, and then we have a spray which we make ourselves, which is a mix of vinegar and tea tree oil.
Okay.
So we spray that into the wee separator. So basically, as you look at it from the top down, you've got a normal toilet seat, and then for men, you have to sit down. You can't stand up. So
right.
you're
Okay.
sitting down.
Yeah.
And then you just sit down. And if you're a man, you have to direct it.
Right. Okay.
So downsides is if you've had a lot to drink, or you've got a particularly full bladder.
Yeah.
If your stream is particularly vigorous.
Yeah.
It forms like a spiral.
Oh right.
In the separator.
Oh right.
And
okay.
if you don't notice, then it comes up and it hits you on your thighs.
So you get a centrifugal force through.
So you have to be aware of that. Practice makes perfect. So you
Okay.
either have to try and control your flow, or
Right.
the end result is that you then have to have a little clean afterwards. So that's a
Right.
bit of a downside, but it's not a major issue. And then it's a really simple, old school kind of method. So the wee goes in the pot, poo goes in the box. We use biodegradable bags in our poo box.
Okay.
So the plus side is we don't have to, if we don't want to, ever go to a campsite on air, because we could effectively bury the poo bag in the woods.
Right.
And that's, whilst some people may regard that as an unpleasant, not nice thing, it's completely biodegradable. It's great for the environment.
Animals poo in the woods.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Let's put that out there.
And then our wee
natural.
pot, we almost always empty that outside.
Right. Okay.
So we researched that. Again, some people think that's a pretty disgusting thing to do, but if you actually look at it, if you pour it by a tree, it provides a tree with lots of nutrients, makes the leaves greener.
I think the only thing that people say against that is where you put it, isn't it?
Yeah.
As long as it's not near like a public thoroughfare.
So yeah, if we were we do it ethically and nicely.
Sure.
So if we were in a car park, we wouldn't pour it on the tarmac.
Yeah.
So we dispose of it, by a tree, out of the way, not where somebody's going to then walk on it or whatever.
Yeah. And what do you use over your poo? You've got some props there, haven't you, sir?
Yeah. So we have this. We've got a couple of boxes which are next to the toilet. So this one has got pine and cedar, just sawdust.
Okay.
And that in biodegradable composting terms, if you were actually composting the poo until it became compost, then that helps take any moisture.
Right. Okay.
And it acts as like a kind of smell barrier, if you like.
Right.
So if you were composting, you'd build that up,
Okay.
and then over the period of a couple of months, it would become compostable, usable earth.
Right.
But when you're in a van or in a vehicle, and there's three of us, so we're generally all going once a day.
Okay.
So our poo box is normally full in about a week.
Right.
Which
Okay.
is not long enough for it to compost.
And at that stage, is there any noticeable smell emanating from it?
No.
Right.
No. One of the other major benefits is the most part of the smell is caused by your pee mixing with your poo.
Right.
That's
okay.
what creates a chemical bacterial activity, which then makes it smell horrible.
Right.
So by separating it, you don't get that bacterial activity, so you don't get a horrible smell.
Right.
So the worst smell you get is when you go for a poo. If it happens to be smelly, or you had a curry the night before, or you got wind or whatever, then you get a brief moment, like you would anyway when you go for a dump.
Yeah.
And then when you're finished, you do your wipey, put your sawdust on. We've got like a little door over the box. So
does your toilet paper go in with your poo as well?
Yeah. The ladies, they use for wiping of their wheeze. They don't use tissue. They use like special like lady washable cloths.
Okay.
So that we use less paper for the environment. And then we've got a bag at the side of the toilet, so they go for a wee, they have a wipe, they pop the cloth in the bag. We've just got ripped up bits of cotton.
Right.
And then when we go to the laundrette, we wash those. That cuts down on paper, because you don't want a massive amount of paper in your poo box. We've got a proper toilet block in our van with a slidey door. So it's not airtight, but it's kind of airtight in respect to the rest of the van.
Yeah.
So we've got a 12 volt computer fan we installed inside of the toilet next to the poo box. That's on 24 hours a day, hardly uses any electricity at all, and what that does is sucks all the air out of the box and sends it outside.
Right.
And then we've got a vent on the roof which is controlled by the movement of air and humidity. So basically the air comes in, fresh air comes in, and then it goes out of the box when the door's shut.
Right, well, that's one view. Another view, and I've got a prop for this one, is that method.
Yep.
And a pee bottle, and that's sort of what you would call the minimalist method. And there's a few people we've spoken to over the last few weeks that use that. So that's one method. For those that were, kind of like really kind of hardcore, I guess that's an easy way of dealing with things. We have got a cassette toilet, and that is a spare cassette. We've got two, simply so we can extend the life cycle of where we can stay, really. That goes in that bag, and then it goes in that bag. So it's well sealed when it's used. We get number 1s and 2s in our cassette. Like I said, this one hasn't been used, so you're alright right now. And it lasts about 3 to 4 days. That's with 2 of us using it. We kind of like have some other options as well, if both cassettes are full or whatever. One is a Travel John, which is a gel pack. Another one is a Shiwi, which Mandy can use, which makes ladies able to pee just like guys can pee standing up. We use chemicals every 1 in 5 changes. And other than that, we just use the bio tabs for laundry because they're much cheaper. And in all fairness, the bio tabs aren't as smelly as this. So, but this does a better job of breaking everything down. And we just use regular toilet paper because it still goes down. And when I empty it, it's my job to empty. I don't get blockages or anything like that. So it's properly kind of like just disintegrating inside. And yeah, that's really roughly about it. It's simple. You sit in the toilet. It's one basin, does everything. Open the flap, off you go. And I think the only kind of like difference of systems that we've heard of is that you can get a SOG system, which is something like yours, where it's a ventilation that goes onto the side of the cassette, which as you're using the cassette, so when you got the flap open, it sucks the air outside, so you don't get the smell coming up. But roughly, I mean, some people have asked questions about have you ever left the cassette for a long period of time forgotten? Because I guess like if you've got a campervan and motorhome that you don't use very often, have you got home and forgotten about it? And the answer to that question is yes, I have. I had an illness. We came home and it was in there for 4 or 5 weeks in the height of summer, and it didn't smell any different when I finally remembered to empty it. So
they're very well sealed.
They really are well sealed in that regard, yeah. So you don't get you don't get much smells coming out of it once it's sealed. I used Rain-X on the bowl as well, plastic Rain-X, which helps with things going down faster, but the downside of that is that you do have to put it on every 4 weeks. And we use fresh water that comes from our freshwater tank to rinse the bowl every now and again. Other than that, Mandy's got a chemical sort of like yours, which is vinegar, and I think she uses vodka or something in there. So, so that's our setup.
Can you pee standing up in
yes,
yours? Yeah.
Which as a man is obviously the better way.
Yeah.
Even Mandy said with the Shiwi that flow is much better standing up than sitting down. So that is a bonus of that system, I guess. Yeah. So Greg.
Yeah, I mean, our camper van, we've got a Thetford cassette toilet, pretty much the same as John's. It uses a cassette, the same as John's. But we made the conscious decision when we put the toilet in our van that we weren't ever going to use it for number twos. So we only ever wee in our cassette. I know some people might think that's a bit strange, but we chose to do it that way. It does help to keep the smell down considerably. We have absolutely zero smells from our toilet at all, even when we're using it. So it was just one of those things. We just didn't want to do number twos in our van. There are a few other people I know of that are the same, so I don't think we're unique in that respect. The cassette probably will last us 5 to 6 days before we need to then empty it, because obviously we're only doing wheeze in it, so it lasts us a little bit longer. Normally we would use a greener version of this, which we can get in the UK, but we can't get these on the continent, so at the moment we're using these blue ones. So they're not as environmentally friendly, but we put one of these little sachets in the cassette each time we empty it and refill it, or each time we renew it, refresh it. There's a greener version of this obviously, and all that does is it just helps to keep it smelling nice. And if you were doing number twos in the cassette, it would also help to break down the solids as well. So we put one of those in the cassette each time we refresh it. We also use the Thetford toilet paper that they recommend, only because this toilet paper just breaks down a lot easier. So rather than use normal toilet paper, which can probably clog up your cassette, we use that. It's very thin, 2-ply, and it literally disintegrates in the water. So when you come to empty the cassette, we really haven't got any solids to get rid of. It's all just liquid. And then the only other thing we use is just a spray cleaner that Thetford also do, just to clean the bowl. Occasionally we'll spray the bowl, give it a good wipe, and then that also just helps to make it smell nice and fresh in there.
And your flush, it's electric flush, is it like mine? It just comes straight from you?
Yeah, it's water system is pressurised. There's a little button on the toilet. Every time you go to the toilet, you just give it a little press for 1 or 2 seconds, and it just rinses the bowl the same as a conventional toilet would. Yeah. It hasn't got a cistern as such. It just pumps straight out of the tank to flush. So in terms of number twos, what we have to do is we use public toilets wherever we are. So maybe a service station, we may pull into a McDonald's, or even in a supermarket when we're shopping. And yeah, I think there's loads of places where you can go. And then if we do get caught short, which we have done, you know, we've been wild camping and there aren't any toilets anywhere, then we've actually used one of these. And I know this is probably pretty controversial, but this is a biodegradable bag. It has effectively like a little sanitary towel inside it. And all you do is you put it inside the toilet bowl. There's the towel there. So you line the toilet bowl with that. You do your 1s and 2s, and then you bag it up, and then you can either dispose of it responsibly or you can bury it in the ground, because this will biodegrade the same as the rest of it. Because
we used to have a T6, you know, small VW, and someone's asked me specifically what was it like, because we had a little porta potty in that. What was it like, you know, if your partner went to the toilet, what did you do? Did you go outside? And what happens if it's raining, if in the middle of the night? And that was one of the reasons why we changed this van. There was that, and dealing with ladies' issues, which is another aspect of toilets. You know, Mandy needs some sort of hygienic way to, you know, deal with ladies' issues once a month. And the cassette deals with that without going into issues. You know, she uses something called a moon cup, and that's all dealt with the cassette. So
yeah, and it's the same for us, which is why we've got our shower, cubicle, wet room in our van. It's just really nice to have some privacy when you're going to the toilet. I don't think anybody, as much as you love your partner, you don't really want to see them doing that.
Yeah.
And the other contentious issue was, I was having a big debate a couple of months ago on one of the pages on the Face group, and it was essentially what we're doing now, talking about the different types of equipment you can put in your van to deal with how you go to the toilet.
Yeah.
And there was hardly anybody that had a composting toilet.
Right.
So I was kind of going in saying this is my experience, and you know, whilst I'm not biased in a way, what I can understand is why the composting toilet is not more popular, because you don't use any chemicals, you don't use any water, which obviously if you live in a van full time or even in a motorhome, water's is something that you want to, you know, be precious about.
Yeah.
There's no smell, so even if you're unwell, without being unpleasant.
No, that was another question people had, was do you still continue to use your built-in toilet if you do have, you know, the trots or whatever you want to call it?
So I was unwell last week. I was awful. So I was going to the toilet 3 or 4 times a day with a really bad stomach. So in that case, again, without being unpleasant, what I did was, before I wiped, I put the sawdust in the what I'd just done first, because it was more liquid without being gross. I know that's bloody unpleasant. And then the sawdust is on top of that, and then I put my tissue on, and again, there was no issue with smells.
An important question, and has the bag ever failed?
No.
Right, because that's the biggest issue, like you were saying with your biodegradable bags, is, as you know, biodegradable bags do have a lifespan too when they start to break down.
No, the only unpleasant issues we've had has been with our wheeze, really. In that, because there's 3 of us, we generally fill the pot up in a day, sometimes 2, so then that means you have to empty it every day.
Just continuing from, we didn't touch on where we dispose of our stuff. I mean, because people will be asking, where do you dump a cassette? But there are loads and loads of service points all around Europe where you can service your cassette. You just look for the little camper symbol with the little down arrow. There's absolutely loads. You can find them quite easily on loads of apps on your iPhone or on your smartphone. So it's really simple. Isn't it?
I mean, I've got an IKEA bag that my cassette goes into, and just so you are aware, I don't know if yours is the same, it probably is, this chemical and the biotabs we chuck in are safe for European FOSS systems. So there is no formaldehyde, there's no chemicals that's going to mess up the ecosystem of the FOSS or septic tanks, whatever you call them. So when we dispose of ours, we can actually use public toilets. It's still quite easy to empty the cassette. It's not something that we kind of like drive around for hours.
No.
You can pretty much pick up anywhere. And I guess as far as kind of like smells of when you empty the cassette and how you deal with it, there is a button on the top. So as you actually, it empties out of there, you turn it around that way, lower it down, you press that button and that releases the top pressure, which allows the flow to be faster. And as long as you get that neck as deep as you can into the toilet, then you don't get any splashback, and you can control the flow with that button as well. So it's quite a nice-ish process. You don't really get splashback or anything like that. And the worst part about it is just make sure you clean whatever you've emptied it into, so it's nice and clean when you leave it, really. So we have a few questions on this now. Do I use a SOG system? And that was what we were touching on before. It's the extraction of the smells as using the toilet outside. You can read on lots of forums people saying on a campsite, although there's a 6-metre rule, the last thing you want to do is, as most vans are back to back and most toilets are emptied on the back side, not the opening side, you're essentially always facing somebody's toilet cassette side, and therefore apparently these SOG systems are not liked because people don't change. There's a filter in them, don't change the filter, and you just get the nasty smells.
With ours, which is kind of similar because we've got a permanent extractor. So we basically we drilled a hole in the floor, ran the pipe out, we put a vent on the end of it. But again, it's that amazing thing that you've got a bag of poo in your van, so you naturally would assume it would smell bad.
Well, I was going to say, we've been camping pretty much right next door to you
for a couple of weeks.
And I've not smelled anything.
You can literally, I've been under the van looking at, repairing something, and I've had the thing
vents
blowing right near me, and it just doesn't smell.
I suppose at one point when you initially go to the toilet, there's a smell coming out, but after that, it's nothing really.
The moisture's gone, the sawdust and so forth, and
it is literally it's just like any toilet in your house. If you go to the toilet, there is a brief moment where it's unpleasant, maybe to smell. I mean, the only thing I read up on this, because I wanted to know exactly more about SOG systems, and apparently it can help dramatically with decomposition because it's taking the moisture out. So that's probably a bonus. But so I think the only other thing to cover was the one that we all discovered recently. A few people we spoke to is the pee hole in the van. And I've got mixed kind of thoughts on that one. And it's essentially, people have drilled a hole in the floor of the van, either in the toilet or in the communal area of the van, and they've put some sort of collection funnel on there, and male and female use the funnel and it goes outside, and there's no filtration, there's no
control over it or anything like that. And their view was, well, you know, as long as we don't stay in the same spot for a few days, it shouldn't smell. Obviously not on a car park or something like that. So I think that kind of covers every aspect of ones and twos in a van, really. If you have any questions or comments, obviously leave them down below. Everything that we've said, we wouldn't like any abuse from you. It's your opinion. We've expressed our opinion, and I'd hope that you respect that we're not here to be berated by you. We just wanted to bring you this information because a lot of you ask about it. So thanks very much for watching. Thanks, Dom, for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me, John, to
You're
talk
welcome.
about my poos.
Yeah, well, it's always happy to do that. Dom's channel is Those Weirdos. Website is also, as you can maybe see across the top of the van, thoseweirdos.co.uk, and they have got a YouTube channel, so please do subscribe. They don't normally talk about ones and twos. Normally Dom cooks them some food.
Absolutely, yeah.
Nice paella last night. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Greg, sharing your experiences with
Always
your
a pleasure, mate.
ones and twos. And yeah, take care. Normal service resume next week, so send us your tech questions and all that next week. I think we're done with the shitty side of van life now. Thanks very much for watching then. See you later.
Cheers,
Ciao.
guys.
Bye.
Ta-ra.